Well, good evening, everyone. It is great to be here again with you on IFYL Inspirations for Your Life. I'm so happy that you have decided to pop in. We are the show that inspires you. And first, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for you making the time to be here each and every day, whether that's 10 a.m., 10 p.m., 4 a.m., 4 p.m., 12 noon, 12 midnight. Whenever you watch, I am so grateful that you have made the choice to have Inspirations for Your Life part of your daily motivational diet. And this is the kind of information and food, I should say, you can eat that is not going to put any weight or calories on because it goes right up here to your brain. I have an amazing guest that is going to be joining us in just a little bit. But, when we talk about positivity, I think some people they get a little bit sidetracked on what that means. And we're going to learn a little about that more tonight. As you know, the whole week is dedicated. We start on a Saturday, we roll all the way through the week. I have Dr. Alan Lycka. He's actually suffered a near-death experience and sought renewal through the wisdom of human virtues that refocused him on a life of richness, appreciation, joy, and service. He is now a full-time radio show host, life-changing speaker, acclaimed author, and a transformational leader. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Inspirations for Your Life stage, Dr. Alan Lycka.
John, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you and get to know you and get to talk to your audience. I love being with you, John. This is going to be a golden moment in our lives.
I agree with you. I had a golden moment when I was on your show too. I think every time that we're together, we learn, we share. And I think when, two paws of the same come together, it's just kind of an amazing, I'll call it magic, but a real amazing chemistry that allows us to help other people become better. Because that's what we do every day, right? We do what we do because we want to help other people become better.
Yeah. And, my story is one of where I went from tragic to magic. And that's why I love to share this with everybody. So many people are on the tragedy part and they need to get to the magic part as well.
I agree with you. So before we're going to get into those great nuggets, which you have a lot to share with us, first thing I want to talk to everyone about is, what is positivity? If I had to ask you, Dr. Lycka, in your own words, and I'm going to share as well in mine, what is positivity for our listeners and our many viewers here tonight? What does it mean to be positive? In your own words?
Positivity is the undisputable belief that everything is going to turn out right, no matter what happens in your life. No matter what mountains you have to climb, no matter what things knock you down, that you are going to surmount those obstacles and you're going to turn out to be the victor, not the victim. You are the one that's going to succeed where others fail.
So what I say, and I agree with you, I think the best thing about positivity is that positivity, you guys know my claim and my motto, which is believemeachieve.com, which is on my hat, which is on the QR code. You have to believe before you can achieve. Henry Ford said something a long time ago. If you believe that you can't, you're right. If you believe you can, you're also right. But if you're going to be listening to other people your whole life about, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not this, I'm not that, you're going to spend all your time burning your energy up on what you can't do instead of focusing on what you can do. And I got to tell you, friends, there are a lot of things you can do. And, without telling my whole story tonight, I just want to tell you that it starts with you believing in yourself. If I never believed in myself, I don't think I could ever started doing keynote speaking or, being able to do podcasts or interview guests or just be able to make a difference in this world. So positivity is key. And so we all know that we need it. Why is it, Dr. Lycka, that so many people in this world seem to lack positivity or they just don't want to make time for it?
I think people have this mistaken belief that they are their failures. I think they get knocked down and they have a hard time getting up. Everybody in life has failures. Everybody gets knocked down. But the people that succeed are those who get knocked down 8 times and get up 9. They're the ones that do it. And everybody should have that in their power. Tenacity is one of those things that people are lacking. So, they'd sooner turn off the world, turn on their cell phone, go to the bar, have a drink. They would sooner delve into other behaviors rather than realize that there is this true power inside themselves that they can turn on to. And that power is deep down inside of you. You have to find it, you have to dwell on it. People just somehow have lacked that vision. And some people, it started in childhood. They started in a bad family with a million things against them. But every day on my show on how to live a fantastic life, I talk to people that have climbed out of that adversity, that no matter what happened, they were able to rebound from it.
I think that's an important thing is rebounding. A client of mine a while back, said something to me, we were having some challenges. And, you can't always have a rosy path. You sometimes have to have challenges so that you can learn from those experiences. And, I was working with this client and they were getting a little upset. And I don't get upset. And he came back to me and he says, John, I want to apologize to you. I said, oh. He said, yeah, I was a little bit unrealistic. I said, okay, no problem, And the thing that got me was something he said to me. He's John, he says, you don't get to the gold until you have to go for basically the hard road. And he says, if you can put up with the hard road with me, well, then you enjoy the profits you're going to make by doing business with me. I said, okay, thank you. So I think, failure is failure. And I know I took a very good course many, many years ago, and I sent my sales team to it. Henry, it's actually not doctor. His name is Tom Hopkins. He started in the real estate industry. You may know him. And I always went to his programs and stuff. And the thing about him is he says, I never see failure as failure. And he has a couple things. And one is I never see failure as failure as a way to practice my technique and perfect my performance. I never see failure as failure, but only as a way that I can suit up to win. And I think people don't realize one important thing about life. And that is we are players on a chessboard. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that we're strategic. We need to play. We need to have that creativeness where we'll play. If it doesn't work, okay, we learn from it. Mr. The gentleman who invited our light bulb, Mr. Edison, he didn't find one way that light worked with the light bulb. He found 999 ways that it did not work. So I guess, having that view is something more people should understand. So I think the question I want to ask is hear a little about your story, Dr. Lycka, is, you had an interesting challenge with going through a near-death life experience. And I guess I want to ask you, first of all, for those of the people that don't know what that means, let's make this very simple. What is a near-death life experience? And did you know you were going through it? What was it? How did you feel? And how did you get out of it? And what can you share that might be some nuggets for people? I know there's a lot there that they can learn from.
So let me take you back. It was 2003, and I was walking with my wife and youngest daughter in Disneyland. Ironically, the happiest place on the earth. And my wife turned to me and she said, "What's wrong with you, hon?" I was taken aback. For once in my life, I hadn't said anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't even thunk anything wrong. But she persisted. "What's wrong with you?" And it was a voice of concern. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Your foot, it's flapping." I said, "What do you mean flapping?" She said, "Listen to your foot." Well, my foot had suddenly and mysteriously developed a foot drop. It was flapping on each step that I was taking. It was slapping on the pavement, making an audible sound. She said, "Did you have a stroke?" I said, "Dear, if I had a stroke, I'd be lying on the pavement, muttering something unintelligible." Well, she said, "When we get back, you better get this checked out." Now, when your significant other tells you that in that tone, you don't have any choice but to get it checked out. So that's what I did. I started seeing friends that were doctors, They were befuddled. They didn't know what was wrong. They sent me to more doctors and more doctors and more doctors. So at the end of the day, I had seen hundreds of doctors and they had no idea what was going on. And when doctors don't know what's going on, they do more tests and more tests and more tests. I think they invented tests just to do tests back then. And so, with all that going on, I was getting depressed and befuddled. And finally, all these doctors said, "We're going to send you to a brain doctor, a neurologist. He's the best. He'll have an answer for that." So I walked in. I said hi to the doctor. He said hi back. "You better be sitting down when I tell you this." I said, "Why? I've got a dropped right foot." He said, "No, you don't. You have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Get your affairs in order. You have 6 months to live." I said, "What do you mean? I have a dropped right foot." He said, "There is a way to figure this out." And he said, "The only way we can prove this is on autopsy." Autopsy. I said, "There's no way I'm going to die to prove you wrong." But when you go through something like this, John, you go through a bunch of phases. You go through the phases that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote in her book on death and dying, but they don't come in any logical manner. You go through anger. You're angry. You can bite the head off nails. You go through bargaining that, "Oh God, please don't let this happen. I'll do anything if you don't let this happen." You go through denial. There's nothing wrong. I can go through everything. There's really nothing wrong. But I had a dropped right foot. And through all this, my right hand began not working properly either. And so at the end, you start getting depressed. And depressed is the worst phase because during that phase, you can't eat, you can't sleep, life has no meaning. You could lie in bed all day staring at the ceiling and just not do anything. But before I went through that phase of saying, "I'm going to kill myself," I went to my wife and I said, "What do I have?" She said, "I haven't got the faintest idea, but you're going to figure it out." I said, "How?" "I've seen every doctor known." And she said, "Well, perhaps you haven't seen the right doctor yet." Now that was brilliant. And back in 2003, they invented something new. It was called the internet. And the internet is something we rely on every day now. But back then in 2003, it was very primitive. You had to get on with dial-on connections. And that meant a phone went on a cradle and went ria, ria, ria for about 15 minutes before it connected to the other side. And when it did, you were able to get to the other side. But computers had no memory back then. So you had to get on and you had to have people that helped you because you only could use languages like DOS and other primitive languages to really get through it. And I wasn't educated that way. Thank goodness I had friends that were nerds and they taught me how to get on and how to search the web. And I found a doctor in Colorado Springs, Colorado, by the name of David Martz that had a diagnosis very similar to mine. But he went through much more rapidly and became ill much more rapidly. And as he was on his deathbed within weeks of his diagnosis. And that's when people were coming up to say goodbye to David and say, "David, we love you. Rest in peace." But a doctor from Texas came up, a doctor called Dr. Harvey, looked at David and he said, "David, I don't think you have ALS. I don't think you have Lou Gehrig's disease." He said, "What do I have?" The doctor from Texas says, "I think you have chronic Lyme's disease. I think you've been bitten by a tick. And I think if I start you on treatment, you'll get better." David whispered because that's all he could do. He said, "Start the treatment." And within 2 weeks, it was like Lazarus arising from the dead. David was back to his regular self. So I knew I had to get in touch with David. I phoned every hospital in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I met up with David at the Methodist Hospital, and we talked for hours. He said, Dr. Lycka, can you come down and see me? I said, when? He said, what about right now? I said, David, it's Thanksgiving in Canada. My wife's invited 50 people over. I don't think I can make it. He said, aren't there any planes in Canada? He wasn't going to let me get off that easily. So I went to my wife, my hat in my hand, and I said, dear, I'm not going to be here for Thanksgiving. She said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Colorado Springs, Colorado, because there's a doctor there who claims he can help me. That's where my wife took a 180-degree turn, and she said, what are you waiting for? Let me get your bags in order for you. I'll drive you to the airport. Come on, you're wasting time. So I flew to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and there was David to meet me there. He was meeting me on the tarmac, and he said, Dr. Lycka, let's talk. And we talked for hours, and he said some magic words. I think history is repeating itself, he said. So he started on me on treatment. And that's why I'm here today, still thriving despite that. But you know, when you go through that, you go through this phase. You said, did I live? Did I love? Did I really matter? What is my life all about? And that's where I started to change and realize that there's much more to living than just being a cosmetic doctor, than just being a person that takes care of people as a dermatologist. I found it was much better to take care of people in all aspects of their life. And that's where I wrote the book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life. I started a syndicated radio show called How to Live a Fantastic Life. And it's been amazing, the journey I've been on and the people I've met. I've met you, John. I've really had a great time with this. And every day in my life is amazing. I find every day I get up, I have purpose, I have meaning. I have something that I need to do. I need to communicate with others to help them along their pathway, because there's so many people out there that are on that pathway of despair. You know, COVID played a number on a lot of people. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of denial. There's a lot of bargaining going on there. And the world has changed very markedly since 2020. And I think people need to get back to a normal life and see that normal life and really see a life that it's intended to be. And that's what my mission in life is now, to help people really understand that and get to a higher level of being.
I love that, Dr. Lycka. Reminds me of my mission, which is people think I'm nuts, is to become a better version of myself and help everyone else become better versions of themselves. But I tell them when they say, you know, John, you're being selfish. And I said, well, no, I can't help you unless I help myself. I'm no good to anyone else until I learn how to help myself first. And I think there's a lot of valuable lessons that you shared there, Dr. Lycka, about the fact that, you know, when you recognize something, we've all had a situation, and it doesn't have to be where you're on a deathbed. It doesn't have to be anything fatal, but it just has to be where you have these epiphanies, these wake-up moments. And I think people that actually get these wake-up moments don't find themselves in the hospital. They make the change, but people that don't get them do wind up in that situation. Say, hey, you, like slow down, like, you know, you need to change. And I think a lot of people, you know, they just are used to living and doing what everybody else says. But I have an interesting thing that I want to share with you. I'm not a big when it comes to crystals and stuff, but I have to tell you, I'm very big when it comes to energy. And as you know, we're not anything more than just energy vibrating here, millions of times per second. So this is a rose quartz crystal. And the thing that's very interesting about this is that this crystal, I mean, there's a lot of properties to it, but I think it's very interesting about it is that if you take this crystal, most people, I know when I take the crystal and I sleep with this crystal, either in my hand or where have you, you have very profound dreams. So this tells me that the energy radiating from this crystal has the power to change our reality of life. Because reality is not reality. It's actually a perception. What do you think about that, Dr. Lycka?
I think all of us have a perception of reality. Everything that happens in the world, we filter through our brains and then we come up with our reality of things. And that reality is often jaded, it's often changed in such a way that people do not perceive the reality as it actually exists. And I think that's a detriment to people. If people look at things through a positive filter, their life comes out positively. If they come through things with a negative filter, their life turns out negatively. So, as you said about Henry Ford, if you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Absolutely. And, wearing sunglasses is a perfect example. I wear my Ray-Bans all the time. Now, I don't just wear them to be stylish. I wear them because when I was younger, my dad was diagnosed with cancer in both eyes. And he went through a procedure, a test procedure where they did drops, a study, and now he doesn't have it anymore. But I realized that I need to start taking care of not only my body, but my eyes. And so just wearing sunglasses when you're outside a car, because most cars today have, polarization and they have UV filters. So by you protecting yourself and by you putting on these glasses, okay, I see the world differently than somebody else sees it. And so, like you mentioned about the positive and negative filter, it's very similar to the filter of a lens of a camera. So I know when I did photography at the very beginning, we would put these color filters, or we'd put these filters where they would create like pixels of everything. And they're like, oh, that's kind of crazy, but that's the reality that we see. And I think what we see is actually happening by one thing, and that's what we feel. So the thing that has me really curious, and that's what gets us to get passionate, is becoming curious, is when I could take something like a crystal and I can get something like that that causes a tangible change, that causes an effect in my life by just holding something, by just being part of something that can change our mind. That's the part I think that's so amazing.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think people need to get their emotions under control. I think they need to look at things in such a way that helps. Zig Ziglar said, it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. So, aptitude means all the things you've been given, but your attitude truly determines where you're going. And that means how far and how high you can go in life. So think about that in your regular day.
I love that. It reminds me of the story of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, where you know, and also Rich Dad Poor Dad, how you take a perception and you think about it, and that gets me back to something that I can't not get out of any show, which is the fact that we have to have gratitude. Our gratitude just seems to open up hidden portals to experiences. And this brings me to my next question. And this is something that a lot of people think that I'm probably smoking. By the way, I don't smoke, don't do drugs, but it sounds a little out there. And it's called our Raz. And no, you can't buy this on Amazon. You can't get this at Walmart. You can't get this at your supermarket. It's called Raz. So our Raz is our reticular activating system. And it's very smart. But we can make it smarter with repetition, practice, and belief. What do you feel about that, Doctor?
I think our reticular activating system is a very important part of our brain. It's the part of our brain that determines how we react to flight, fight, and fright, and even freeze in those situations that are there. It's the primitive part of our brain that gets us to react in a splinter of a second even before our upper brain realizes something is happening. So it is something that's very important for the survival of mankind and survival of every one of us. So that reticular activating system is very, very important for everybody. Some people will call it the lizard brain. So remember, that lizard brain is there that keeps us going in every crisis that we're at.
But the thing a lot of people don't realize about the RAS, trigger acting system, is that it can be trained to do more than it was designed, which was fight or flight. You know, if you're going to get in trouble, if you're going to burn yourself, if something is going to harm you because of a past experience, it knows, it's got that encoded. But if it thinks something is going to possibly hurt you because of previous experience that it knows, it's also going to protect you. So people say to me, John, how do you get the RAS to cooperate with you? Well, you have to push the envelope a little further. And as you start to push the envelope a little further, not going off the deep end, but just slowly going off the deep end, and you get closer, the RAS gets a little nervous, but then it kind of calms down once it realizes that there's no apparent danger.
Yeah, I think that's right. I definitely think that's right. I've always said that our true life always begins at the edge of our comfort zone, not in our comfort zone. That is something that people might not find very helpful for them, but I think that's essential for people to realize. If you truly want to live, you should be pushing that edge of the envelope. You shouldn't be staying just in your comfort zone.
I agree so much. But a lot of people stay in that comfort zone because, again, it's comfortable and because it's safe, quote unquote. But when we are safe, and I'm not telling you to do things that are very risky, I'm telling you to do things that are moderately risky. I'm not telling you to go jump off a building. I'm not telling you to go parachuting unless you want to. I'm telling you to get a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not telling you to do something you've never done before. Ease into it. If the water's cold, okay, well, dip not just your toe in, maybe dip half of your foot in. And then when you get more comfortable, well, dip your whole leg in, but don't be scared to do that because of what someone says. And my question points back to this, and that is our RAS. So it's very smart, and it's something that we can basically develop if we want to, but a lot of people do not develop. A lot of people only use 1% of their brain. That's all they use. So this brings me to my experiment, and that is this. People have different cars. I drive a certain color car, you drive a certain color car. And if I ask you what the most prevalent color car is, if I drive a white car, and what color car do you drive, Dr. Lycka?
Blue.
Blue, okay. So if I asked you a question, I said to you, Dr. Lycka, I bet there's a lot of blue cars on the road.
It's funny how you all of a sudden notice more cars of your car type when you actually buy one. The first day you buy a blue car, all the cars are blue. The first day you buy a white car, all the cars are white.
So this means something for those of you listening and watching. Why do we care about cars? Well, it's not about cars. It's about our mind. And so if we focus on positivity, which is what this show this week is about, if we focus on the positivity, which is become positive and change your life. By the way, we're on series 2. Thank you so much. Our second year, show 26, episode 5 with our guest, Dr. Alan Lycka. And when you focus on the positive, it's like more positive comes in because you're looking for it. If you're looking for a negative or you're looking for things to go wrong, the mind says, okay, you want things to go wrong? Got it. I'll bring it right up for you. Just give me a second. I'll deliver that for you. And people don't realize how positive the negative side is and the positive side is. So why don't more people put emphasis into the positive?
Again, I think it's people wanting to rely on that comfort zone. I think people have this tendency that when anything is just a little outside, they want to move it back to the norm. And it's not the healthiest thing to do. I think they need to extend their horizons. I think they need to push themselves out of the horizons. That lack of pushing themselves is something that's a detriment. You know, if you exercise, you're going to hurt the next day. But if you don't exercise, it's not going to be healthy for your body.
Absolutely. You've got to have not pain, but you got to have some discomfort. I know when I went to the doctor the very first time, you have wisdom teeth taken out. And I said, it's going to be painful. He says, no, he says, it's going to be discomfort. And it was funny how discomfort, pain, how we started to, I guess, associate, because we're always, oh, it's going to be painful. No, it's just discomfort. And so the more I started thinking about it as discomfort, I'm like, okay, well, there's an ache. It's a discomfort. It's not a pain. It's a discomfort. You've been discomfort before. You've had discomforts before. I mean, you sit in a chair, you're not comfortable. Well, let's make ourselves comfortable, right? So when they described it as being discomforting, it was different. Other docs said, well, it's going to have a pain. So you don't want to tell people there's a pain. There is a discomfort, and there may be a different level of discomfort that you may be okay with or may not be. I'm not. So instead of saying, I don't know what your tolerance to pain is, I don't know what your level or your acceptance is of comfort and feeling. But they don't talk like that, do they?
No, and again, I think it's sometimes our expectations create our reality. I mean, if you're expecting pain, you're going to feel pain. If you're going to expect discomfort, it's a whole different thing than expecting pain.
You have a great quote on your show that you did recently, and that was failure only exists when you stop trying. When are you on your current, if it's your financial journey or if it's some other type of journey, if we stop trying, then we've given up. And somebody also said to me, John, we haven't failed unless we've quit. So I might not have done well yet. I might not have reached the $10 billion mark yet, but I've learned and I'm still working on it and I'm getting better. So people say to me, John, well, I'm still not where I want to be. Okay, great. I'm working every day and I'm getting better at my skills, or I'm becoming more proficient at this craft or at this job, or whatever. I may not be where I want to be, but every day I'm getting more comfortable with it. And I think our brain, likes words, and we have to love ourselves. We have to love ourselves. If we don't love ourselves and we don't respect ourselves, people are never going to respect us. So, in my last question to you, Dr. Lycka, when we think about positivity and we think about, the fact that it's something that we are born with a certain level of positivity, and then there's also positivity that comes because we want to feel good. But the last question I want to ask you has to do with the positivity and what I call the dopamine effect. So I like positivity for a lot of reasons, but one reason I like it is it gives us a natural high in our body and we're not hurting our body.
Yeah, and people don't realize, I think, that when we activate certain things, we activate the chemicals in our brain. And the positive chemical we get is dopamine. And dopamine really infuses our brain to see things more positive when you are positive. So it's not only a thing that helps at the moment, it helps in a whole different way. Like they have found that once your brain has more dopamine in it, you see things clearer. You can see things even better. So that is something that is so important that it infuses your whole brain with a mechanism to persevere at a higher level.
I think that's amazing. And I think people have to realize that this is not fast food. I don't eat fast food, but this is not fast food. You don't go to your brain and say, okay, I need this now. You better deliver it in 20 seconds. You've got to be patient with your brain and you've got to celebrate those small victories that you have, those small positivities, even if they're little wins. Don't go for the entire, you have the battle and then you have the war. Well, celebrate those small, mini battles. Don't wait for the whole war to be over before you celebrate that positive. And I think people sometimes don't do what they want to do because they're waiting for that big castle, right? They're not happy with the fact that, hey, I actually lost 2 pounds. It's not 35. but hey, it's 2 pounds.
Yeah, I always think baby steps are the way to take it, John. Taking a little step is what makes it happen. But the Chinese say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So unless you take that single step, you're not going to get that journey of 1,000 miles done.
You're reading my mind, Dr. Lycka. I was thinking something similar, and that was you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Exactly. That's what people have to realize, that it's the little things that matter. And if you don't get that going, you're never going to succeed. Succeed comes about when you take the effort to succeed. Now remember, effort starts before the success. Without the effort, you won't get to the success.
Yeah, you gotta keep showing up. What do they say? Life is 95% showing up and 5% strategy.
Yeah, 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration.
Inspiration. Well, Dr. Lycka, it is always a privilege and pleasure to be with you, either as a guest or as the host. And it was just great to have you on today and to share with us about becoming positive. But the last thing I want to share with everyone is that, being positive is something you as an individual have to make the choice to be. I can't tell you to be positive. I can suggest it. I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink it, nor would I want to.
No, and I would like to help everybody that's your audience, John. What I would like them to do is go to my website, Dr. Alan Lycka.
We got it right on the screen for you right here.
DRALLEN Lycka, LYCKA.com. And make sure you sign up for a golden pearl that I'll send you each and every week. So that'll help get your positivity up there. It'll help you get to another level, and it'll help motivate you to get to another level of success.
Well, we have covered a lot of pearls today. We've even found some gems that were hidden. And in doing so, I believe we are here to become better versions of ourselves and help other people become better versions of ourselves. But another one I also believe is that we are here to have experiences, and we're here to help other people and to explore ourselves by learning about others. So the more we connect with others, the more we can dig into our own self that we may not know existed. I do want to thank you, Dr. Lycka, for, again, spending your time with us today. Please do, ladies and gentlemen, check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing content. Definitely like, love, support the channel. Tag your friends, colleagues, and associates. Share this out with everyone you know. Where? On social media. Then go to my YouTube channel, John Space C Space MORLEY Space Serial Entrepreneur. Look for that key phrase. Help keep our content free. Make the choice. Click on the PayPal button and buy my team and I a cup of coffee, a bowl of fruit, or a scrumptiously delicious dessert plate. Either way, we're going to be so grateful with those pennies and dollars you invest into us. We'll put in new hardware, new technology, new equipment, new software, even new facilities to give you the most jaw-dropping, motivational, positive content that'll get you to become the person you've been wanting to become as you've been sitting on that bench waiting for the coach to say, put me in. I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It's been a blast, and thank you so much, Dr. Lycka. We are out of time, but I'm sure we will catch you again on another IFYL show, and we are the show that actually motivates you to change your life.
John, the pleasure was all mine.
Thank you so much.